Okay, sorry about that. It has been a chaotic day, and I was off doing we'll call it a private tutoring session for a colleague. So, welcome back, everyone. So the last several streams I've gone through and done kind of different, like learning or training type related stuff, which has been good. Unfortunately, my week has been chaotic, and I really wanted to prep into some of those topics that people had requested, whether it be the authentication or maybe some of the like UI testing stuff. And I unfortunately did not have any time to prep. And more importantly, if I wasn't streaming tonight, I would probably be working on one of my own projects anyway. So I figured I'm just going to work on what I want to work on, which is one of my own projects. So now, before I get too far, this project is technically a secret. So shh, admittedly, broadcasting it live on Twitch is probably not a great way to keep a secret. However, the people I'm keeping it a secret from don't usually watch my stream, so I'm going to gamble a little bit. If any of you are in my gaming group, turn off the stream now. Okay, so one of the other things that I enjoy doing is board games. So between programming and board games, those tend to be a lot of my relaxation things. And I've got quite a few kind of larger board games. Twilight Imperium, Eclipse, those are two of my favorite. Descent, not the new one, the older one, is one of the favorites. My group kind of likes larger dungeon crawly style games in a lot of cases. We'll play a little Magic the Gathering. Trying to think of what else. We did Dice Throne this last week. It was great. But we are, or I should say, my wife and I are, we are trying our hand at being dungeon masters for a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And as part of doing that, you move little figures around on the table, and oftentimes there's maps and cool things. And I've got one of like the dry or wet erase battle mats, so it's basically a big mat that you roll out, you draw on it with markers, it erases, you can draw more stuff, yada yada yada. That's cool, but I'm also a software developer. And as a software developer, I immediately look at that and go, yeah, I can write some code for this. And so specifically what I was looking to do is to actually go through and build out a computerized screen. I had a spare TV sitting around and a Raspberry Pi, so naturally I went, those two things go together, let's put them together. So it's not going to be really easy for me to physically show the device, so we're going to do this virtually, see if it works. Because normally I'd be doing this with my real devices, but real devices don't stream well. So, and I don't have enough cameras to make that work well. I should get another camera. Anyway, so the short version of it is I was thinking, okay, I've got my TV, I put it in a box, I can lay it flat, that's great. Normally you'd put some sort of kind of protector over the screen because some of these minis are like metal pewter and could cause scratches and that kind of thing. And if you don't want to like ding up your screen, you would do that. Except for in my case, this is a pretty cheap TV. I don't actually care too much about that. So, if you're doing it on a nicer TV, protector, good idea. In my case, So the idea is the TV will contain an image for the map. And then the problem being is I want big images, like really big. And my wife enjoys making maps and doing art and that kind of thing. She's the artistic half of us. I am not the artistic one. All like the pretty logo there. Yeah, that's not me. That's her. She does the pretty side of things. But the idea is because these images are big, and I kind of want to get the squares on the image, the individual spaces where figures move, down to about a 1 inch. There's going to need to be some zooming and some panning and all of that kind of jazz. And to be clear, I could do the easy way, right? I could drag a laptop down to my gaming table. I could run an HDMI cord, plug it into my laptop, share the screen, open an image, and just do all of that. That is something I could do. That would arguably be easier than what I have started doing. Significantly easier. I have gone off the deep end of figuring how complicated can I make showing an image on a screen. Standard developer mentality. I made it complicated. So the idea is mobile phone app, press button, image moves on the Raspberry Pi, which means wireless connectivity. In order to make this work, I was like, okay, we need kind of fast, real-time communication. Maybe I should just show it. maybe we'll just show it, because this has involved Azure. I've got all kinds of stuff. So hang on, let me get some stuff pulled up. Again, I was expecting to have time to prep all of this stuff. I had no time to prep all of this stuff. Okay, so we go button here. Okay, so the thing is called Tablet. And actually, you know what I'll do? It's been a private repo this whole time because, once again, I was trying to keep it secret from my gaming group because they don't know I'm building this. This is going to be a surprise. So, shh, don't tell them. But again, they don't usually watch my stream, so I'm kind of gambling on it. Okay, so we're just going to do this real quick. Go in here, change visibility, make it public. So if people are interested, I will make this public. If you are interested. The other thing that this was useful for is I was wanting to learn some technologies. I was wanting to learn SignalR. I was wanting to play around with Maui. I know I've mentioned on streams in the past how I've done Xamarin Forms in the past, and I wanted to give Maui another shake. Even though it's still preview, I figured I'd give it a run. And so if you've heard me make somewhat negative statements about it, it's largely because of my work here. So if people care, there's the repo. It's now public. Huzzah. Okay, so inside of this thing here, I've got a bunch of stuff, and I've gone round and round. Do not take this as a great example. Have you played Tabletop Simulator Munchkin Steam? So I own Munchkin. I have not played it on Tabletop Simulator. I have done some Tabletop Simulator stuff. There is one video that I've done. It's out on my YouTube with one of the guys from my gaming group, James. I have a weird aspiration of designing board games too. I'm just not very good at it. It doesn't mean I don't like doing it. I'm just not good at it. So I have played around a little bit with that. So I'm fairly familiar with Tabletop Simulator and getting that going, but I have not tried the Munchkin one. I'm assuming that's yet one more of the game ports that's out there. But I do enjoy Munchkin. For a while, the group of people I was hanging out with enjoyed playing Munchkin once a week. It's a fairly good light game, especially late at night when you don't want to have too serious of a game and think too hard. Okay, so brief overview of what we've got. I've got kind of the core library, which I'm putting shared code in. So not thinking too hard, that's pretty much it. I've got a test project here, but these, even though these may look like unit tests, these are full-on functional tests. These are actually going out and hitting my SignalR service. I didn't want, part of it was I wanted the test to verify that things were working appropriately. And didn't want to deal with the overhead of trying to figure out, okay, the universal app versus the Maui app, getting that deployed, getting it running, making sure it's tested. That was just, the developer loop was too long. I wanted to be able to quickly validate that my interaction with SignalR and everything was working correctly. So these are, even though they're called tests, this is actually full-on integration tests. So things to note that I've learned about. So SignalR serverless, because the fun part with a lot of SignalR that I will mention, yeah, this guy here, this is a good one, is, so for those people unfamiliar with SignalR is meant to be a real-time messaging protocol. It is very good. It deals with a lot of the overhead and functionality of figuring out how do I do that kind of real-time messaging between things, because you either end up, like, especially for web, you end up, well does the browser support WebSockets? Do I have to do long polling? How does this go back and forth? Well, now I want to communicate from my Java or Python and my C# app, and I want to have all of those work. How does all of that flow? You don't have to worry about that. It handles it all for you, which is great. So in terms of a fast real-time messaging protocol, it's pretty good. It's very good. The problem is normally you have to stand up SignalR inside of like an ASP.NET Core app, deploy it to an app service, all of that jazz, which is fine and great. But recently, like I want to say in the last year, don't quote me on that, they came out with a way to do it serverless. So rather than having to host an app service, you can do it with Azure Functions, which things get invoked on demand. It's great. It's awesome. Potentially less cost depending on your workload. And you don't have to have that issue with clients connecting directly into your app service. They can connect into this SignalR hosted service that Azure manages for you. You don't need to worry about it. It's wonderful. It's perfect. So that's what I was interested in learning. And so I have my own little SignalR service, and I should be careful that I don't accidentally expose any secrets while doing this, because I have a bad habit of doing that on stream. So I've got a SignalR service that I can hit. I've got a Azure Functions app that has a bunch of functions in it, which is great, that do a whole bunch of things. The short version is, if we look at the code here, and I'll leave it up as an exercise to the reader to figure out the Azure stuff. Following the, let's clean that up while we're in here. Following the tutorials, you can get set up pretty easily. I will say, follow the tutorials and pay close attention to detail. I messed up an ID at one point when I was doing it and promptly spent hours trying to figure out why things just weren't working. It was a pain in the neck. The directions are accurate and correct. It's just if you don't follow them accurately, things don't work, and that is not fun. For the code portion of it, it's as simple as creating a serverless hub, and then you declare out these functions that will then be invoked by the SignalR service when things happen. The most important is this negotiate. Very important that you name it appropriately. And this is where you can set up authorization and authentication. Anybody paying close attention will note that this is pretty much unauthenticated. The authorization level is set to anonymous, and really all I'm doing is bringing in and pulling out the table ID claim off of it, which in my case is a randomly generated 6-character ID. I was trying to keep this simple so that when the app that runs on my Pi fires up, it generates a random ID, logs in, displays that. Actually, boom, looks kind of like this. And you'll note currently it's set to debug 2 because I hard-coded it for testing purposes, and debug 1 was when I was on my other machine. So there's that. This gets authenticated, goes back and forth. Then when you fire up the mobile app, whoop, fire this guy up. As you can see, default Maui, for anybody who's done File New Project with Maui, there's that. This is a little tiny, but let's see. You enter the table ID and you hit connect. And it'll be hard to see, but this thing technically will change from new client connected to new client connected. But then I've got control to execute panning commands. You can see that that changes as I'm executing the panning commands. I have zooming commands, which is really hilarious that I can zoom in my load an image thing. But as you can see, as I'm clicking and those things are going, and it is very fast. That's the speed of SignalR. These two things are not communicating directly. Up to SignalR, down to the other one. But SignalR has handled setting up that communication protocol. It is really good for real-time stuff. So this goes like this. The idea being that this thing should be able to have images. It should be able to import the images that then get pulled down over here. And at one point in time, I had grand aspirations of not storing the images in Azure. And I was, because SignalR is meant to be real-time, it's got a maximum message size. I think the payload is, don't quote me, I think it's capped at like 10K, give or take, which is pretty big. Like, admittedly, for a real-time messaging protocol, 10K is big. But if you want to send a high-res image across the wire, well, that ain't even close to big enough. And so at one point in time, I had built this thing up that kind of chunked the image into bits and shipped it across as multiple messages and then reassembled it on the other side. Yeah, I've abandoned that idea. One, it was buggy, and I didn't like that. That was sucky. And two, it was just kind of slow. And it shouldn't need to be slow. And it was slow because I was effectively building TCP communication on top of SignalR communication, which was like multiple levels deep, and JSON encoding and base 64ing stuff, and it was a mess. Like, I don't doubt it can be done. It's just not a great way of doing it. Switch gears, change of plans, new storage account in Azure. I'm just going to store them in Azure. That's where I'm at. So, and that's where that's where the app currently sits. So, just to call out, so this guy here is a universal Windows app, and he's only a universal Windows app because the SD card that's in my Raspberry Pi right now is running Windows IoT. And so this guy is set to Windows version 19041 because that's the latest version that my Pi, that Windows IoT can support on my Pi. I thought Universal Windows app was dead. Dead might be a strong word. It is not recommended for new development. This is not normally what would be recommended here. So it's not completely dead, but it is not where I would be building new stuff. So the replacement for it is going to be WinUI 3. So WinUI 3. This guy here. So this, if you're already so UWP apps were great in their time. They gave you a nice sandbox environment. They came with a lot of performance improvements for XAML that will likely never make it into WPF just because it required some really structural changes in order to get the performance out of it. All of that is kind of being harnessed and brought into WinUI 3. So, not to be confused, WinUI 2 was an expansion on UWP. WinUI 3 is throw UWP out and start fresh. Because that's not going to confuse anyone. I will always call them by their real name, Metro apps. Yeah, that's where they started, the Windows 8 Metro style. And actually, the first one I wrote was when Metro apps supported JavaScript, TypeScript front ends. So that was a weird adventure. I'd got the company I was working for had gotten into the preview program for it before it launched, and so we were building an app on preview SDKs, and that was hard because you couldn't Google solutions. Nobody had the SDK yet. Is React Native considered a first-class component like WinUI yet? It's probably as close to first class as it's going to get. So I don't know if anybody would completely call it a first class one. The React people would definitely say yes. The pure Win32 people would say no. But it is close enough to a first class component that Microsoft has a lot of investment into it. It's actually one of the ones that if people were to ask me what they should invest in for building a brand new desktop app, it would be one of the ones I would suggest people look at. Again, it's one of those, because Microsoft has such a large investment into it, it's not going to die anytime soon. Yeah, Xbox Game Pass Desktop is built on it. I would not be surprised. I've been told that large portions of like Office are leveraging it as well, which again, those types of investments from Microsoft means that there will be long lead time if it's ever going to go away, or if they're going to ever stop supporting. It's out there. Like it's going to be persistent. So, okay. So my goal tonight was to actually just continue on with my little app here and see how far I can get it, because I'd like to finish it. I'd like it to get it functional before my next gaming night, which is potentially in like 10 days. We'll see how it goes. This has been occupying a bit of my time, and a lot of it has been occupying my time because I've hit just stupid bugs. Absolutely, like I've run into just really stupid things that, thank you, Justin, that have slowed me down. And occasionally I may sound very negative about MAUI apps, Admittedly, it's not GA yet. I have to remember that. But there's been some stuff I've run into where I've just gone, really? 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 My current favorite is the grid doesn't necessarily work the way a grid should work in all cases, which is dumb. Okay, so let's go back here. I want to fire this guy up and figure out where I am at. So let's go Maui. Set as startup. That's the other fun thing is in order for this thing to work, I have to have like 2 clients running and Azure stuff functioning. The one nice thing that I did do, and I will call this out, I do have an Azure function that will go out, not an Azure function, a GitHub action that will automatically deploy my Azure Functions project on every push into master. Like, I turned on CI/CD, and it looks really hard and complicated until you realize that I didn't actually write this. This got generated for me, which was really nice. There was a button in Azure that said, where was deployment? Yeah, deployment center. And it was like, hey, would you like to connect up your GitHub repo and have me automatically do stuff for you? And I went, yes. And I think I changed like a couple names. And other than that, I went, it works, ship it. So it dealt with, setting the secrets up in the repo and putting those all in. And the only thing I think I had to change was the path into the CS proj. Because it wanted the project to be at the root of the repo. I didn't want it there, so I changed the path. I think other than that, it just worked, which was awesome. So points awarded to whichever team was responsible for this section. It worked exactly as designed and made me very happy. Okay, so we are going to go here. We'll use my pixel emulator for reasons. I'm just gonna kill that guy, kill that guy, kill that guy, kill that guy. Make that go quick. This is one of the other joys of Maui and why I ended up writing those tests is because, and this is only partially Xamarin's fault. Some of the slowness when it comes to like compilation and deployment is the tool chain. So people will sometimes complain about the deployment speed of like Xamarin or Maui. And in my opinion, the only fair comparison is comparing it against how long the native ones take for a similar app. That's the only fair comparison because there are times where the native deployments are dog slow. And unfortunately, this is something on top of the native. Therefore, it's going to be as slow as native plus some. So people are like, well, why can't it deploy as fast as WPF? It's well, because WPF is going on to native Windows from Windows. You're going on to Android from Windows, and you're built on a different native stack. Sorry, there's only so much you can do. Boom, boom, boom. The other thing that I really didn't enjoy, but Android is x86. It depends on the device. I will say the other thing that has made me really happy is the wireless ADB debugging works great. I would show it to you, except for it would require like plugging my real device in and holding it up to the camera, which sounds miserable. Okay. Okay, so we want to come down to my images page, and I want to see what is going on here. So I think what I have done, so I've got several issues I logged against my repo. So when you hit, so let's connect real quick. And here we should see this thing here should indicate, hey, new client connected. So as soon as, because even though you're connecting out with a random 6-character ID, the first thing it does after it auths against SignalR is it sends a ping out to say, hey, are there any table apps connected under this ID? And just to make sure, because it'll fail the auth and say, hey, there's no table there. Are you really sure? Let's see. Is there any reason to do thick apps over PWAs? So PWA, for people who don't know, is Progressive Web App. The reasons are getting less and less. I think because people have asked similar questions about, is WPF dead? Is UWP dead? All of that stuff. And I think the comment I've given before is they aren't dead. It's just that what a lot of the stuff that people used to use them for, web has slowly taken over. With that said, there are still things that do not work well outside of a thick client. So things like large file interaction and that sort of thing. And the browsers are slowly getting better. They like HTML5 was a massive leap forward in all functionality of what websites can do, especially even like local stuff. I mean, a lot of it, like Electron, really drove a lot of stuff forward, which was awesome. So I'll say this. There is less of a reason to do a thick client app if what you need is possible in a browser. There are always questions about how to do things. Running Chrome 12 times makes my desktop sad. See, there's a good example of why you should do a thick client app. Is the web stuff is getting better and can handle a lot of the stuff that that desktop apps used to do. Sometimes people put too much into it. Like there's a lot of like Electron-based apps that were done that way because people wanted cross-platform. They wanted to have an easy cross-platform solution and didn't want to write their app multiple times. That is a very reasonable thing. And unfortunately, cross-platform desktop, there's not a lot of games in town. Like you've got React Native, Electron, trying to think, Uno, Slack, Coffee. Yeah. Slack is a good example. And there's not a lot of good cross-platform ones. And because all of the cross-platform things, you're either picking between the idea of I want a native UI or I want a common UI, which different designers will go different ways on which ones they prefer. Sometimes they're like, no, I'm on Mac. I want this to feel more like a Mac app. I don't want to just, like Java Swing, cough, looks crappy everywhere. Really pushes out like this common UI feeling on everybody. Oh, Qt, yes. Qt is actually quite popular for C++ developers. There's a lot of apps built in it. And it's not obvious because oftentimes with Qt, people work at making their apps look native on there. Java Swing was like, how do I make it look universally crappy? I agree. That sounds horrible, but I agree. So in that regard, and part of it is I am not a web developer, or I should say, that is not my forte. I do web development, but I prefer thick client stuff. I just like it better. I don't like fighting with browsers. That just makes me sad. I like being happy with how it if it looks good on my box, I don't want it to look crappy when I ship it. Let's put it that way. And the fun part with browsers have gotten a lot better about this. But there was always looks good on Chrome, looks like crap on, pick any other browser. It's like, really? Or looks fine here, looks bad here. It's like, I don't like that. If this is what I see on my emulator, darn it, on my physical device, it better darn well look the same. And you know what? It does. It looks just like this on my real phone. Which is perfect. Okay, so when I hit the images thing, it goes through and loads images, which it's going through my image manager. So a couple things I wanted to do is this image manager here. Yeah, so it lives up here in my Maui app. And I want to change this because so before it lived up here because I wasn't storing images anywhere. And I had this idea that I do want to cache images on the devices. And for those people who haven't heard the joke yet, cache is a French word that means failure point here. The other joke is, what is it? There are there are only two things that are hard in computer science: cache invalidation, naming things, and off by one errors. And there's a reason cache invalidation made that cut, because caching is, it seems so easy and it is so bloody hard. So in the core library, this client here was my, and is first in that joke. Amen. Amen. So the table client is my class that wraps the SignalR stuff, because I didn't want my other project staff to think about or know anything about SignalR. And in fact, I've still kind of hidden it away from them, in that inside of this class, I've deemed that JSON serialization will be how I encode my messages. It controls the SignalR stuff. Kind of does. It feels like remote message processing a little bit, but it turn that on. But it requires you to make sure that both sides register for the same messages and that kind of thing. So I hid all of that away inside of here and left kind of this universal register thing. So I had a cleaner API so I can do all this. And some of this code is dead now, but whatever. So that's all of this stuff. Is I kind of wanted to hide a lot of the SignalR stuff. I've got a leaky abstraction. I exposed the SignalR state thing. If I cared to make it better, I would clean that up. Functional memorization, I think, for this class. Kinda. In this case, it's really more around. I'm setting. You have to, the on method is registering to receive messages from SignalR, and so in this case, these ones down here are old. Normally, what you would do is you would have the receiver of the message register for various functions, and those would get invoked passing the data through. In my case, I have tried to... Oh, no. Tabling reader... Oh, yes. So, the answer, no, that is not quite what I am doing here. So that is what we are going to do. So normally you would register for a particular string, which is your function name, for lack of better words. And then SignalR, when a message is posted, would find the appropriate recipients for that function and then send it to them. And that is controlled by this hub. So for example, when I send a pan message, what it does is it looks for things on a particular ID, finds all the clients, and I should probably switch this to be all clients in a group with that ID rather than with a user of that ID. But regardless, one or more clients that have that ID send that message back down. So technically, the thing that sent it is also getting it right back. And I went, That was my thing. Because down in the client, when it receives it, because I'm wrapping most of these things in a table message, all of these, so specifically this guy here, this is the one that's being invoked a bunch. Some of these other ones I plan to obsolete in favor of just wrapping everything. Just because it's simpler for me, not because it's efficient. I'm sacrificing efficiency for simplicity. Because you'll note when it does when I do the send to post the message, this guy down here, what he ends up doing is he always ends up sending under one method call, which is going to be that table message. Because I don't think it's obvious from here. Yeah, so send table message. So it's always using that one method, which that method lines up to a function in my Azure functions. That Azure function receives the message from SignalR, takes it, calls back into SignalR to say, post this out to all the places. And you could make this thing do whatever the heck you wanted. So when somebody posts a message in SignalR, if you wanted it, you could just store it in a database or do something. You don't have to send something back out the door. So, but if you want somebody to send it up and have it go back out to somebody else, like you can imagine a chat client is always what people build with SignalR. because that's what you do with real-time messaging apparently. You could do stuff like that. You could imagine posting messages to groups versus private messages to an individual user, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but in my case, I'm kind of grouping all the things under a particular ID together and just spamming them, because I expect that there's probably only going to be 2 maybe mobile devices and 1 table device on there, i.e. 1 server kind of. One thing showing the image and 1 thing moving the image around. That's the goal. Okay, but because of that, and because I'm storing images in Azure, I want to do local caching of the images on the device. So I've already got a function to get the image back out. So I did build up some resource functions. One that lists the resources and one that gets it. And it's no more complicated than one iterates over my storage account and one just pulls the blob out of the storage account. It's no more complicated than that. And then it just streams the result down. So, and I'm doing some fancy things with the entity tag because I want to do versioning with it. So aside from that, that's all there is. So I've got the list image thing working. That works there because that's just dumping out a JSON string, which is great. And then when I actually do this, I need to get it to do something different here. So, and ultimately what I'd like it to do is there's both a list and like a full image screen when you tap on an item in the list. And so I kind of want to set up a difference between, you know what? No, let's not. Working first, caching second. Okay, so let's figure this out, because I want to see, this is going to actually, this is wrong. This should be API. I think it's just resource, isn't it? What did I call this thing? No, it's resources/resource ID. Okay, so API resources resource ID. Okay. Maybe I should rename this to, well, this function is called getImage, so that kind of makes sense. Okay, so if is successful status code, there's that. So let's just read the response. Response content, read as stream async. So this will be stream image data gets await. Where are we going? Where are we going? Come on, find it. Thank you. Okay, so then this guy was wanting a byte array, but let's go back to this guy. So images. So this guy here calls load images, which creates a bunch of these image view models from that JSON payload response. And then this thing technically has progress built into it, which is cool. And then this call, so this adds them into the list so that they're shown. And then this calls load thumbnail. I'm kind of wondering if is loading should move. We'll leave it there for now. So this calls load thumbnail, passing in the remote image. So the idea is this image manager could do caching, and it kind of does to some degree. I'm a little right now it's caching in memory, so that's not good. We're gonna fix that. So if thumbnail is null, get client, get image. So this is going to call this, and it's getting a byte array, but I'm wondering if it needs to. So it doesn't need to be a byte array, but I'm realizing that I do need to cache that data somewhere. So we're gonna do this, because there's only one usage, we'll do this. And then we'll do data.length. Perfect. And then we'll do data.copy to async. Memory stream. Because if you'll note I'm very explicitly not disposing of this guy. That's intentional. If you dispose of it, this guy will break later. So unfortunately, we're going to get the data in memory. We're just going to leave it there. So for now, we're going to be wasteful. Don't you have an overload that lets you say buffer size? Int capacity. Yeah, what's your problem? Oh, length is long. We're gonna change this up later anyway. So boom. And then you need to be async task. Nope. Don't help me. I want you to be like that. Okay, so that's gonna go there. Jump to the usage. So this is going to no longer return a byte array. I'd rather this thing to return a stream. Now the only weird part about returning a stream is it means somebody else needs to know to clean that sucker up. Otherwise it's going to hold it open. But I think I'm okay with that. Return. And actually we're going to make it a nullable stream because in the bad case we're going to just return a null. So we'll do that. Okay, let's stop debugging for the moment because we are now at the point. We're going to do using stream image data. That way that will clean up the stream from the HTTP response and you will be null. For those people unaware, the using statement is hip to handling nulls for you. So it will not call dispose on a null instance, which is wonderful. But we'll do a null check and then this needs to be awaited. So, and at some point we need to deal with the fact that this is a thumbnail. So if image data is not null, do the pattern match approach here. Boom, boom. We'll pass it in. Okay. That goes there, that goes there, that goes there. I think this just works now, at least in terms of showing the image. It's obviously going to be showing an image that's massively too big. It is going to download a very big image. Not if I have bad data though. Load image. Oh, this is the other one too. So this is also calling this. This is not good. I have duplicate code that's basically doing the exact same thing with slightly different sizes and looking at a slightly different property. Yeah, we're gonna clean this up. We'll just drop the width on here. Drop that, drop that. Okay, now you should work. Deploy, deploy, deploy. As you can see, this thing currently has no image loaded. So at some point, I would like to get it to the point where the mobile app sends a message over to this client, says, hey, here's an image I'd like you to load. And this guy goes, I got you, and goes and downloads it. That would be ideal. That would be ideal. Perfect. Okay, so that's there. Images. Loaded, but didn't do what I expected. So let's go back here and let's... Oh, I guess I didn't need to do that. I could have just done pull to refresh. Okay. So load thumbnail image. Images, try get value. Existing. Okay, so it finds it's got the thing in it's got the remote image in its cache. Great. Remote thumbnail is null. Great. Client get image. Go in here. Response 200. Read as stream async. Image data is not null. It got one. Comes in here. That was weird. The debugger did not do what I expected there. Thumbnail, I kind of was hoping to see... the containing stream. set next statement is disabled. Okay. Load thumbnail. It's got one. That's there. So for reference, this used to display an image right there, so I don't know if it's a sizing problem or what. Something isn't quite there. So let's start with the obvious. So if I just do pull to refresh, you minimize. Boom. So pull to refresh. It's interesting that this guy, image thumbnail is null. I thought this was... Wait, why did my debugger stop? This is one of the other things that's baffled the mind too, is occasionally the debugger gets very confused. Hang on, so this thing... I kind of want to grab it there and there, pretty please. Stop one. Okay, so here, 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 here. Okay, so memory stream. Data.length. That's a lot of bytes. Copy to... Oh! I know what the problem is. Yeah, see that? That's the kicker. So when I copied into the memory stream, it copied all those bytes, but it moved the current position in the stream all the way to the end. That's the problem. That's the problem. So then when the next thing went to read the stream, it didn't think there was anything there. Position 0. You can there's a seek method too you can use as well. And do like seek origin beginning offset 0. My opinion, setting position equals 0 is perfectly clear, but other people have strong opinions. I don't. I don't care that much. Come on, connect. Failed to find a table. I'm sorry. Did you not respond to your ping? There you go. I wonder if it got backgrounded being minimized. I'm going to put it over there. Sometimes UWP apps will get backgrounded, and that would not surprise me. Okay, so you should have a thumbnail. I'm just going to let it roll. We'll refresh if we need it. Haha! I have a picture! It's way too big, but I have a picture. Sweet! Okay, so now if I... Okay, so that gets that loaded. Now if I tap on it, I should get to the... Probably don't need the catch block there anymore. If I tap on it, I should go to a new page, which will probably reload the image at another higher resolution. No? Okay. This guy here should be what's getting invoked when we do that. So let's go back. Yeah, we're gonna turn you off. You're working. I get it. Another reason to have caching. Every time this page loads, it's gonna get hit. So click. Pulls the ID out. Okay. Find image. Great. This remote image has a thumbnail set and the actual image not. And then this guy calls load image on remote image. Grabs it. Again, basically the exact... Oh. Gotta not be a moron. Set image data, which is still going to be, it's going to be the same thing. So again, working first, then we're going to change this because yes, this is a bunch of duplicate garbage that shouldn't need to be here. And we're gonna just get rid of that guy. Before we were caching everything, and that was no bueno. So we're gonna just do this much of this is gonna be identical. You can also compress image to reduce their size. Turbo JPEG wrapper. Ooh. Check that out. I do have a note on my thing for doing image compression. I've been favoring Skia for a lot of the image stuff. Let's take a look at this one. Lots of downloads. That's a good sign. Hasn't been updated in a while, but it's not like the JPEG spec has really changed much. Let's look at NuGet Package Explorer and Project Site. These are usually the two things I care most about. Oh. Why did it? I apologize. I don't know why it flagged the term NuGet. Sorry, my moderation got a little overeager. Okay, so what does it support? So full framework Net 5 and Net Standard 1.3, which is pretty much all the things. And it used to be apparently on Bitbucket. Let's just do this. I'm gonna go with that's probably the updated one. Let's see. Slightly different name, not the same NuGet ID. Yeah, that is a slightly different NuGet ID, and I wonder, is this the expected same thing? If I look at the project, let's see, strong naming, blah blah blah. This one's been updated a little more. It looks like this may have been a fork or a clone from the original, but I'm guessing was cloned by Motion. Probably butchering that name. And updated because I'm guessing they needed it. So pretty standard stuff, but has a pretty low thing. Cool. I'll save that. Put you over here too. I'll take a look at it because that doing compression on the JPEGs is definitely something that I want to look at. I'm not. That's part of why I want to do caching on the local device, is because with mobile stuff, it's gonna be like, for my personal usage on my personal table, I'm gonna be on Wi-Fi. It's not a huge issue, but I don't want to be relying on network connectivity. I'd like things to be reasonably snappy, especially once, because I'm sure once I put it on the app on my wife's phone and she starts loading up all of the maps and whatnot that she's been drawing, it's going to be there's gonna be a lot of images pretty quick. There's gonna be a bunch. And I say drawing, but it's actually, she's got this cool little role-playing game map drawing program that she uses that it works. It's rather nifty. So, okay, so we will put caching in, but now this should now work for loading the full thing, and then that will, remote image does not contain an image data. Who is using this? That guy. That guy. Oh, interesting. So this would be Skia. Why was I doing this? Oh, I remember why I was doing this. I was doing this because I needed to because I was doing some fancy stuff on this next page in terms of gestures and whatnot that I wanted. I was experimenting. I think I want to keep this, but I don't want it to be relying on that. This is fine, but This guy here is going to be a problem. I think what we do is we update the code to use remote image. Is that not public? It's private. Okay, so let's change this guy off of that to just image. But that's going to make this image source. So then the question is connecting this guy up to an image source, because this is, rename you, image source. What do you give me in terms of getting access to that data directly? Actually, what's probably easier is just go to remote image and look at that. When I do image source from stream, what does that do, Xamarin? What exactly do you do? Well, that is not useful. You are not useful at all. So, when in doubt, we just go look at the source code elsewhere. So, GitHub. Actually, let's do this. GitHub Maui. The problem with just Googling Maui is you don't just get Xamarin hits. Okay, so where are we going? Source, Microsoft Maui controls image source. Let's see, source core, I believe. Let's see. Properties from the platform. Image sources sounds like where I want to be. That is not likely to be what I want. So the way Xamarin and Maui do this is they do what's I'll usually refer to as the NuGet bait and switch. So if you, I'll show this because this is not always obvious to people why when they decompile it they see null. So the assembly that you compile against and the assembly that you run against may not be the same. That's important. That's the first thing that's important to understand. I don't know why those are weird. Does Maui here? Let's just do. Come here. So if we go NuGet, right? Boom, boom, boom. And come on. Load NuGet, load. Come on. Find it. Looking for your dependencies. There is a. It may not actually be in here now that I think about it, because you don't reference it as a NuGet package. It may be coming in as an SDK, but the principle remains the same. Oh, it's not even in here. So what I was going to try and show, which is apparently going to be harder than I realized, is when you compile against one assembly, there is a reference assembly that you compile against, which ends up being, oh, actually this. And I bet you this shows me, oh, location unknown. Great. Bet you I can find your location. Boom. Maui controls. Yeah, I'm gonna bet you it's this guy right here. So if I open path, that's net 6. That's probably good enough. And then if we open dnspy, or insert favorite decompiler here. Let's see. Here we go. So if we open, too much stuff open. Too many instances of dnspy. Close this, close this. Boom. We open this. Okay. So Maui controls, and then in here. Oh, Octotree. Yes, I actually used to use it quite a bit before they added VS Code support. So on a GitHub repo page, you press period, you get VS Code in the browser, which is often, so because I used to use Octotree quite a bit, and then they added this, and oftentimes this has been my go-to option because you get Visual Studio Code in here. I've actually done, when there's simple pull requests that need to be made, I've actually just done this, and it works pretty well. It is not quite full VS Code, even though you can install extensions. You cannot use any extension that requires compute. So things like the C# extension that would require OmniSharp, no worky. But other extensions that just do like syntax highlighting and things like that that don't require like a back-end process or something running to work, go here. So the subtle trick is also, if you're already in something, you can just change github.com to github.dev. So Maui controls image source, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, image source from stream. Aha, found you. So you are just creating a new stream image source. The stream image source has a func and a property on here. So I think what we are going to do, you are public. We are going to just drop in and do, in the interest of simplicity and doing the easy thing of getting it working first, we are going to do just that. So let's go with, lost my place, image detail page. No, it's under the view that is having the problems. Image detail page view. So this guy here, if image source, and we will do stream image source. Boom. And then this guy here should be able to do stream, which is a func, right? Yeah, so we will do func, cancellation token none for now. Let's see, clean that up. Okay, so this guy goes here, does, okay, stream image stream. That gets me to there. Now, SK bitmap, do you really not have a, you decode from a stream? It's just that I haven't included IO stream yet. Is that the issue? Oh, it's because you don't return a stream. Wow, so it returns a func that returns a task of stream. Okay, got it. So you're an async method. Wait, vey. Ooh. There's no way that hurts. See previous stream about async void, and when it's allowed, top level event handler, and all of the problems that it can cause you. I actually ran into a problem today on a project I was debugging. Broken environment, couldn't find the issue, and then finally tracked it down and found a very bad usage of async void and went, no. Quite fun. Okay, so that should now load. I'm only going to get away with this for now because I know what's going to happen here. I think I might end up doing some... This feels like ripe for problems because setting a property on my view model will trigger this async method, which could end up hurting a lot. I'm actually a little interested in how this thing is functionally implemented. Get stream async. Oh, interesting. So this guy is lost it in here. But it's a bindable property. Interesting. Huh. I wonder what binds to that. It must be something inside of the image control. Because typically what you would do is expose up an image source and then the image control in your XAML has a source property. You feed it that, bippity boppity booyah, your image shows up. It's usually that easy. Usually. Like if we look at the images page. So I've got a list view. I've got a view cell, which I previously had just an image cell, but I wanted more control over the contents because I wanted to do things with like a progress bar and whatnot. And so this guy came in here and laid out a grid. Progress bar overlays the image and label, but its vertical option is bottom, so at the end. And then I just toggle it visible when there is progress to be made. So right now my progress property uses -1 or any negative number to indicate no progress being made. So at some point we will implement progress. That loads up. That was great. Click here. I'm just going to ship it, see what happens. Okay, the thing immediately crashes and dies. Let's see, that was resolved breakpoint. And just blew up and died. Okay, so I don't know what's going on. But given my usage of async void everywhere, there's a lot of places that could have killed it. I'm going to go with exception was thrown, bubbled up to an async void method, and terminated the application. Working theory. Validate that. Tap in. There. Remote image. You should work. Got the image data. Great. It assigned the image data. And then it terminated? Huh? Disposing of the... Wait, what? So this... Oh, it's probably... Okay, see, this is a great example. This is almost... I'm guessing if I check it inside of... Let's see if we're actually getting... I have a sinking suspicion we're getting inside of here. And more accurately, I suspect we're getting into here. See, this is the lovely part about all this wonderful async void stuff. There's stuff that's triggering in the background that can bring you down and crash you at very weird points. It doesn't help that this is this invalidate calls back into this, which is a bit backwards, but so we go there. Okay, so we know we get into here. I'm curious if we ever get down to here though. Terminate you. Oh, look at that, we get into here. What a shock. So image is still null, so that's fine. We set here, this is gonna, so this assignment here is going to raise property changed of image, which that event handler is going to trigger back into, because that property change was registered here. This guy was watching for it, called invalidate surface. UI thread then turns around, re-invokes this. Oh, I bet you I know exactly what it is. I just said it. UI thread invokes. I decode, and then I go to draw. And I'm willing to make a very strong bet that when this guy goes to draw, drawing on the canvas is almost assuredly a UI event. And this little guy, I'm willing to bet it's not on the UI at the end of this. So let's check that theory. What is it? Dispatcher. Yeah, something. There's an extension method. I think we just do this. I think we actually probably need to do both of these in here, because if I just do the draw, on the UI thread, I'm pretty sure I'm going to run into an issue where this guy's then been disposed of. Oh, and this stream probably needs to be disposed of too. Which probably means that all needs to be there. Dispatch. So there's like a dispatch async. What is the... or an invoke async, or a... what is it called? Yeah, dispatch async. Which means this now needs to be an async delegate. There, that's now landing there. So one thing that's worth noting, if you see async lambda, there is no way to tell from just looking at this code here what type of delegate this is, whether it's a func of task or whether it's an async void. It all depends on where it is being assigned to or passed into as a parameter. So in this case, every time I see async lambda, my initial instinct is, let's just check that signature. Ah, good. It resolved to a system func of task, which is what you want. You want it to resolve to something that's awaitable. So that then I can await that there. And that should be better. I imagine that is okay. So I'm gonna disable some breakpoints here, because I imagine that is probably going to be what it was. Anytime you touch UI elements from a background thread, it's usually a good recipe for disaster. There. I'm going to disable breakpoints as I hit them. Fatal sig term. Well, that's not good. Oh. I bet you I'm not supposed to dispose of that stream. Okay. Now that I know where we're getting, we're gonna do this too, because I'm tired of guessing what the exception is. Show it to me. Show it to me, please. Pretty please. I would like to see the exception, and I'm willing to bet that this stream... I'm willing to bet because we pass in the stream into the image source is probably going to hold on to that. Which means if we dispose of it, subsequent calls are probably getting a disposed stream, which then blows up when you try to access it, yada yada yada. Pretty sure we don't want to dispose of it. Pretty sure. And I'm reasonably confident the only reason this method is async is for some of the other image sources that are like file IO or web-based. Those lookups of the streams would be remote calls. Sorry, what? Resolved breakpoint. No, you didn't. I insist that you did not resolve that breakpoint. Either that or you resolved it and you decided to keep going. Both cases are not okay with me. Try this again. This is one of the other fun parts about Maui that I've run into is sometimes the debugging is not as seamless as one would hope with other stuff. Okay. I'm sorry, did we... Something is... WPF, I came a problem. You couldn't put a bitmap that wasn't created on the interface or UI thread. Yes. And I would not be totally shocked if I was running into something kind of similar. And in this case, you know, okay, I'm going to try this one more time, but if this doesn't work, I'm actually realizing I can punt. Because I'm doing all of this effort to get the stream back out of an image source, and I'm not using the image source anywhere. Like, it's... Okay, so step. Okay, step. Let's just make sure this thing... Can read, can see, can write. So the image stream has been closed. Did SK bitmap close the... Okay, well, I know I said last time, but one more time. Working theory, SK bitmap is claiming control of the stream and closing it. That is my working theory. Because I have subtly switched what overload I was calling. Before I was calling this guy. What does this SK image info have on it? That's a bunch of stuff that isn't relevant. I'm curious if the image stream is disposed at the first point we hit it. I suspect it's not. If it is, then we can just track down where I accidentally disposed it. Because it shouldn't be. The remote image class. Remote image. This is the stream. I instantiate. I copy data into it, I reset its position, and I assign it to the image source. And this is what I mean where I can punt, is I can, rather than storing this as an image source, I can just store the memory stream. Done. But if SK image is actually disposing of the stream, I will still need to address that. Okay, so we're going to step over. Okay, so image stream, are you disposed? You are not disposed. Its position is 0, can read, can see, can write, has a capacity. Great. I step over and then look at image stream. Okay, so that's the kicker. This method is closing my stream on me. How rude. How rude. It's probably because this is doing SK codec create. Okay, I'm betting this guy here probably wrap manage stream dispose underlying stream. Now, I don't know what this parameter does, but based on the name, I'm going to hope that its implementation disposes the underlying stream, which is being set to true. So, I think what we do is we stop calling that overload. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple things. So, step 1, we are going to change this to memory stream, because I really don't want to worry about this. Actually, we're going to change it to stream because I don't want to expose exactly what it is. Because there's no reason, because this will save us a little bit of work. So this will become stream, and then this will just get memory stream assigned to it. We'll cut the image source out of this mix. So that'll make this simpler. Is stream. And we will rename you to our image stream. Now, we know SK bitmap decode is going to dispose our stream on us. We don't want to call that one directly. So, other overloads available. We could go back down to the buffer, but I think we could probably leverage SK stream directly. Trying to look and see what's on SK Stream. Doesn't look like there is an SK Stream static. No, and new SK Stream. Doesn't seem to be there. Did I just see a memory stream? Stream memory. Ooh, that sounds like what I might want. That's the Googles. Skia Sharp SK memory stream. How does one get access to you? I would like to use you. SK memory stream apparently has constructors that are more friendly. A memory-based stream, that's what I got. I would like to set memory. Can I not get away with really like something that I can feed a stream into? It's the same page. SK Stream didn't have any statics on it. Is it possible to do without probably. The only reason I was leveraging Skia is because there's a lot of image manipulation I would like to be able to do. And Skia is a library I have some experience with, at least for drawing. So the requirements I was trying to work around were I wanted it to work as cross-platform as I could. So needed to work in Maui, needed to work in old UWP, and ideally just be something that compiled net standard 2.0. Because this UWP version can't go older than net standard 2.0. So I was like, okay, it would be great if I had something, and there was only a handful of things that fit the bill for that, Skia being one of them. Which was because I have some thoughts about future features on building one of those, building out more stuff with it. That was kind of my attachment to it. Okay, so this one would do it. Create, but if I recall correctly, this create is problematic because this does wrapped. Yeah, I want to do SK manage stream, so I kind of just want to go here. Oh, I could just do this. Oh, that's easy. Oh, that's very okay. So we'll just do this. So using var SK stream gets new SK manage stream, image stream, and then more importantly, dispose manage stream false. That gets turned off, and actually we're going to be, come on, give me the name. Dispose manage stream. This is one of the few times I normally don't put in the names for parameters, but in the case of like bools, the false sitting there would not be apparent what that was for. Okay, so that's going to go there. That's going to go there. And now we're all now synchronous. Which means we can make this a lot cleaner now. We can do that. We can drop that. And then let's just verify we get all the, okay, that looks better. So we'll wrap it up in an SK manage stream just to make Skia happy. Because if this page ever loads, I can kind of show some of the gestures and whatnot that I was adding, and I do want to put some, like, so there, and to be clear, there are websites out there, like Roll D20 does something similar to this. that people often use for this exact use case. I just wanted to have a lot more control than popping a browser. And I may do a version of this UWP app that runs in a browser. That sounds like a thing I would do. Because I can see, oh, did we crash again? We did. But we did hit that. So I'm gonna just in the interest of simplicity, it's bothering me that I'm throwing exceptions and my catch block isn't doing its job of catching exceptions. So how about debug, right line. So it really is bothering me that you have one job to do. Catch the exception. So whatever is being thrown is apparently not being caught. And I've had weird experiences with the debugging experience. Most of the time it's fine. But I do have to remind myself I am not in Windows. Okay, there. I'm sorry, what? Okay, so SK manage stream. Just look at what this is. Spool disposed to spool managed. Manage stream. Disposed manage stream. Because that's kind of what I want. Okay, well let's catch it one more time and then figure out which of you are being the problematic child. This is what I mean by the app. It's taken me a lot longer than it should for something simple like render image. Should not be a hard thing, but I have hit repeated issues. And I've somewhat contemplated if I should change the requirements I've set for myself. Okay, so image stream exists. It is a memory stream. It is readable, writable, position 0. Great. Step. Okay, image stream should still exist. Okay, so that's fine. It doesn't appear to have done anything to it. Dispose stream false, is it end false, parent stream, memory stream was copied false. Okay, so it hasn't done anything. Step. Okay, it did some stuff. Didn't do much. I'm sorry, what? It disposed the stream. Oh, because I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm an idiot. That's the problem. See, I went to the effort of creating this variable and then never went to the effort of using it, which probably will make a big difference. Okay, so it turns out if you don't use the variable you create, no behavior changes. Good to know. So they're looking at it going, I can't imagine there's a bug in Skia that blatantly obvious. There's not. There's a bug in my code. Okay, do it again. I should stop taking these breakpoints off and being confident that my code is going to work. So far, I think I'm 0 for... What is it? 0 for 10, 12? Big number. Okay. So, we have an image stream. Come on. Don't hang on me. Image stream. I think I broke my debugger with that. So we're going to step once. I think I broke my debugger with my quick mouse click. Yeah, I may have broken my debugger. Okay. I do like how this window now picked up the yellow border. That is exciting. Okay, so there. Okay, gonna go nice and slow now for you, Visual Studio. Okay, stream is in a happy place. Step. Stream. Still in a happy place. SK stream. Looks to have done almost nothing. It's constructor, that's expected. Decode. Image stream. Still in a happy place, but the position has moved all the way to the end. Okay, that is somewhat to be expected. Surprised its isAtEnd property is false. So step, and it just straight up crashes. Wow. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be done fighting with it, and we're gonna do this. Actually, you know what? Let's go one step further. We don't need the visual tree. We don't need the live visual explorer. That's one of the other cool things about Maui is a lot of the Xamaly stuff I showed off in a stream like 3 or 4 ago, where I was doing kind of back to basics, learning about layout stuff. A lot of those Visual Studio toys do work in Maui. Not as good as they work in WPF, but they do work, which is rather handy. Okay, so where is remote image? We are just going to, in the interest of not fighting with this anymore. Oh, no, that's not what I told you to do. I'm sure it's the keystroke I hit. That's not what I wanted. We're going to just do this. Problem solved. So we're going to go with MS to array, and now what we're going to do is we're actually stop it. I know there's build errors. I'm typing. Of course, it's going to break. I'm in the middle of this. We're just going to copy that guy over because, more importantly, I know this code works when fed an image or a byte array. Let's see. Well, so the point of giving it to the dispatch was the thought of this is going to be coming in on a background thread. But you make a good point. It wasn't there before, and my code was working previously. What has changed is the fact that let's come in here. This needs to be changed. What is different is that I changed the source of the image data. It's now being downloaded from my Azure function. Okay, so that probably works now because decode with a buffer worked. I'm guessing there's probably some incantation that I'm missing where I'm supposed to like either reset the position on a stream or something. But I have seen this canvas work. And rather than fighting with it, since I already have gotten the bitmap there, I probably will need to do battle with it once I get the caching going because these images are going to get cached to files. Look at that, it works. See, told you I saw it. And there's things like pan. How do I do pinch to zoom on here? There's that kind of stuff where you could look around it, and then more importantly, I'm covering up the select button. So more importantly, what should happen, and this is going to fail miserably. Oh, thank you. When you hit select, yeah, see setting image, yeah, that didn't set the image. So that's the next thing to get going. Because I'd like to be able to click the button and have it go across. More importantly, I'd like to have like an auto hotkey back on the list so that I can quickly toggle between these things and that kind of stuff. So, kind of want to get that going. But functional first. Hold on, before we get carried away. Let's see. Oh, I'm on my work in progress branch. We're gonna make a commit first. Got image list and details display. Boom. Commit. Push. There. Okay. Now I can mess up all I want. Okay, so let's get the select going. So that guy there is in the view model. Close this all up. Promote. Control RG to clean up my usings, and on select. So this guy calls into my client, calls set current image. That sends it across. This sets the image ID. This sends the ID across to the UWP app, which inside of his main page, he registers up for a bunch of messages, specifically the set image message. It comes in, we hit the dispatcher, run async, because this is coming in on a background thread, and touching UI elements like this label will cause problems. He then calls image manager, set current image, and then pulls the image back out and sets the image source here. So somewhere in here, it's not fully implemented. Yeah, so this guy is expecting to have all of the images in his cache and not have to download them, and that is just wrong. So you'll note I have an image manager class both up on the UWP side, down on this side, and they both do very different things. And ultimately, what really matters to me is that I need something in my core to do this. And I thought I had started this. I may just be imagining that. Did I not create like an image manager? I thought I had. Oh, I did create an interface. Oh, that's up here. Okay, so ditch all of that. We're going here. So let's go here. Imaging. Yeah, imaging sounds good. We are going to create us up, because I imagine I need to create an interface in here similar. Because I need it. What's going to change is the persistence layer, because I want to cache all of the images locally. And obviously, saving stuff in a UWP app is very different than saving things in a MAUI app. So we're going to do like image persistence, something like that. Okay, so we need public interface. So let's do, I'm going to need something like task, because this is all going to be async for the IO stuff. Save image, and let's see, I'm going to need to give it something like a image ID and a stream image data. I'm going to have to do something to that regard. Then I'm going to need to go something like task. I'm going to have to return a value. Let's leverage this thing again. I'm wondering if that makes sense. Yeah, let's do that. Start with this for now until it hurts. So this is going to return an list of resources. I have high hopes of doing things like video too, in addition to just images. So I'm trying to be forward thinking, and I'm probably over optimizing. Get all. Actually, maybe this should be save image. ID, because this isn't really going to be specific images. Data persistence. I don't like data. Data's too generic. Resource. Yeah, something that's probably better. Okay, and then find that get all. That could be an async enumerable. And then something like task stream get string ID. Yeah, basic CRUD operations. I probably need like a remove and whatnot. This is probably the first layer of what needs to be there. Okay, and then down here, I'll add class image manager. This may end up being just straight internal, so we'll leave it internal for now until I have a reason not to. And you're going to need an I resource persistence. We will assign to a property, add a null check. Okay. And property should be private. Shouldn't be needed outside. Okay, so who's going to need this? So my thought is I want everything outside to kind of flow all its communication through this table client class and not really worry about where the source of the data is coming from. So for example, this get images. I want something, all the code outside, if they want the list of all the images, should just call this and shouldn't worry about where the sources are. It's just get the data. So I think that means this guy here is going to need to do some stuff. That probably means I'm about to break everything as soon as I do this. Because this now means I need one of these things. I'm trying to decide if this is feeling yucky or not. We're going to keep going. And then this guy is going to need to keep a hold of an image manager, because to do his job, he will use the image manager directly. And actually, I'm realizing right after I called that, said I didn't like image for the other name, I named this thing image manager. So let's do resource manager. Really wish you'd rename. What? Can I just rename you? Error performing rename. Oh, I broke something. Excellent. Excellent. I was worried it would be easy. Okay. And then this guy will be resource manager. And then that means down here, you're going to be unhappy. So I'm going to do resource manager gets new resource manager. And this guy's internal, but that's fine. And we will throw new argument null exception. Oh, the autocode had it. You were so close, autocode. Name of, thank you. Boom. Okay, so that builds that up. That builds that. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so when we get all the images, the only way this call here isn't going to be able to do much. It's going to have to hit the API every time because it won't know if it's missing images. But this guy down here, resource manager, this guy can theoretically start to do stuff. Sorry. Yeah, the IntelliSense is lying to me. Okay, why are you being so dumb? Oh, because I haven't exposed anything yet. So that's a question of what does he need. So what ultimately do I need? So I want to do something along the lines of, let's see. So resource manager, add resource metadata, something. I want to do something akin to that. I don't know for sure, but that it'll be something like that. Get, and then I want to pass in image ID here. So this guy should give me back something. So this should be stream cache data. And then this guy probably needs to give me... Here's the question. Should this guy be retrieving... We're going to ignore width and height for now. At some point, I do probably want to... Like, I haven't actually implemented any mechanism for uploading images either. Right now, it's me putting them into a storage account manually. And I think... For now, we're going to go like this. So, and actually, let's do it differently. So, if is... cached data return. And I'm almost wondering if this HTTP client should move in. I can't decide where I want to do that abstraction level. I'm really torn about just putting him inside of there and letting this do all of the work. Letting it shell out and this thing, that's actually probably a better idea. That's actually probably a lot better idea. Let's move it. Does that make sense though? Does that make sense? Because now I've got a bunch of entry, well, let's not move it yet. There's an API question that I'm not sure I'm happy with. Okay, so let's gen these methods up. I don't think I need the word resource here. That's a little redundant. Come on, autocode, gen method. Okay, so that'll give me those two methods. And that'll be fine. Okay, so that gets me to there. What is your problem here now? This class was previously private. This class should remain private. I should not be passing in this. I'm just trying to decide if I should change that up. Given that this is internal, I'm going to make this guy internal for now. And pull him out. I don't like this though. Because this is now mixing intents. I don't like having an object who has, on one hand, is being used as a DTO, a data transfer object for serialization up and down from the service, and then also being used as my image manager. That is a red flag. Don't use resource class. That's bad. Okay, so we want to do this. So we're just going to go with private list. We're going to do that. And then we need to have, actually this actually needs to be some other class. Private class. So this, we'll start to clean this up a little bit. I don't know if we'll ever expose this or anything, but it's going to need a public. Actually, this could be, well, this can't be a record. Oh, I really want to use a record. I can't use a record because I'm targeting an older TFM and I don't want to deal with it. I could make it work, but I just don't want to bring in the extra thingy for it. Tempting. It's not that bad. Maybe it's not that bad. The issue is the moment I do this, it's going to squawk and complain because it doesn't have the compiler services is external init. And I can go and get it, but then I have to do pound if the attributes and Let's just do it this way. Okay, so we'll do an ID, public string. What else do I need off this thing? Let's grab version. Actually, you know what? Let's just copy those. Boom. Clean those up, clean that off. I think what we're going to do is we're going to drop display name for now because I don't have a separate version or a separate thing for that yet. We'll do that, and then this is actually nullable. Yeah, so let's do cache. So we'll start breaking this guy apart. I want to have extra properties on here for knowing where the source of this resource is, if it's local or otherwise. Which is the only reason I'm doing this. So we're going to do a lock here because I want this guy to be thread safe. Resources. And actually, you know what we're going to do instead? We're going to go dictionary string because and this can actually be an enumerable then an array. That'll work for each var resource in resources. And then I'm going to be very explicit about this. So rather than doing .add on the dictionary, I'm going to do the indexer. The subtle difference of what this ends up doing is if something already exists, it will overwrite rather than throw. Isn't it better to use semaphore slim? It depends. So semaphore slim is what you would use inside of an async method. The lock, because semaphore slim allows you to do a wait handle to call back on. Lock uses the monitor class under the hood, so cannot be used for an async method, but is a much simpler locking mechanism for just synchronous code. And actually we should probably do where x dot let's see, not string, oh boy, string is null or white space because I don't want to deal with that. Resource ID, find link for me please. Boom, boom, there you go. New dash resource, and this is going to get x dot resource ID x dot version. Let's see, so gen me a constructor please. Come on, Visual Studio. Just create me the constructor, don't do the assignment. Oh, it's because it's like, why did it not know the right types? It didn't know the right types because I didn't give it a variable it knew anything about. So ID gets ID, version gets version. I think we'll just go ahead and make version nullable. Right now I'm leveraging the E tag on the blob to keep track of it. And this I can assert is not null. This I can assert is not null. Because there should be no way for that to happen with here. technically with threading, something could reassign the property. I'm just not even going to think about that. The only assignment I have in that property is for serialization. So I'm not going to stress too much. Okay, so we will lock resources again. Come in here. If resources try get value. Let's see, cache resource. Oh, we actually should do. I think I want this to just be ID. Let's see, out cache resource, cached. This is supposed to be nullable on that. Okay, so if we get it, I guess the question is, how do we intend this to work? Because at the end of the day, in order for this guy to manage this, he is really going to need to have the HTTP client, isn't he? Because he's going to need to make the call to get it. Either that or the table client is going to have to break the tell don't ask rule. Which makes more sense, because on a cache miss, what we really want to do is, so the true case is easy, return the data, move on. On the false case, when we get back the image data, we need to store that back into the cache, which kind of implies that this guy should go, okay, I just talked myself into it. We're gonna move it. It makes more sense. Boom. You, sir, are being gifted with an HTTP client, and we now need to move some initialization code from this constructor, and this guy here is going to go like that. Nope, paste, and we're going to go with string endpoint and expect that to be passed in, which means you move down, and this thing becomes endpoint. Okay, so that gets the HTTP client into there. That breaks a few methods, specifically all of these. But it actually cleans up a lot of this too, because now I can hide away this complexity. Let's do, yeah, so this is old code, that can die. You, come here, you're gonna go inside the get method at some point, and we may end up going back to a semaphore slim now that we're gonna have an asynchronous call. Because this guy here is now going to be turn await that. That's going to need a change. And at some point, it's going to need to pass in the width height of it. And actually, maybe we just preemptively do that. Width height. We're going to go with nullable ints here, int width, int height. Okay, so we'll do that. And then you need to change to async task, because you're going to now do work, lots of work. And then same with down here on the getting of the images. I think we just take all of you out. We just take all of you down. So this is going to be no longer, this is going to actually be more like internal, actually let's just put it down here, because for this is going to end up being get images. So rather than passing stuff in, we're gonna kick stuff back. So this is going to be really simple with await resource manager get images. No thinking, just doing. And then this guy here, it needs its signature changed. Boom. Okay, so that'll get me into there. That'll get me into there. That'll get me into there. I need the serializer added. Okay, and then this is going to end up going in here. Okay, so now we have to do some fancy threading. So in all of these cases, we're cool with this. Hey, Patrick, thanks for the subscription. I appreciate it. In case you weren't here when we started, I am building the world's most complicated image viewer. It's actually for tabletop gaming to display maps on a TV. So connection between a mobile app and a Raspberry Pi running UWP, because my Pi has Windows IoT on its SD card for reasons. Not exactly the recommended device for it, but it's what I got, it's what I'm using. Okay, so threading fun now. I think what we do is we still keep the individual lock, because there's no reason to block multiple HTTP calls, because we aren't going to do a cache check until after the response comes back. So I think we do this here, and that makes that easy, because the lock doesn't need to do, the lock only needs to be over around the dictionary. It doesn't need to lock anything else. And then up here, when we go to get an image, now this is where it's going to get more interesting. So we're going to need to lock, and if we get a cached resource, or I should say in the false case, I think what we do is because there's a question, so this is the cache invalidation problem. And I think what we do, and this is why I like the cache resource idea here. What we're going to do is we're going to pull you out. Cache. Boom. And then we get rid of this assignment here. We let you just be there. And because I don't want to do this HTTP call inside the lock, because I'm very okay if multiple calls come in for the same ID that end up generating multiple HTTP calls. I think I would rather multiple calls go out in that situation. Because I could either block the second call until the first one comes back and return them both, with the idea, well, and that maybe that is better. The only thing I don't like about that is, unless I get smart with my semaphore slims, then if two calls come in for different IDs, blocking the second one doesn't make sense. Is it possible to use memory cache? It's thread safe besides. So yes, well, memory cache would work, but not for quite what I have in mind. Because in this case, I am actually wanting to, the memory cache is, it doesn't have this the ejection that I want. So in my case, I'm not going to be ejecting things out of memory and having the cache timeout there. In this case, the cache is referring to whether I have the image local on disk or not. So if I have the image on disk, I want to just return that. If I don't have it on disk, I want to go out and get something else. And I think this is where I want to check persistence. So this guy, I'm realizing I named this wrong. This should really be a nullable stream. And I think I don't actually need this guy here. I think what I want is here. So if this returns true, and and this is where the I'm not going to be able to get away with a lock. This is where I'm not going to be able to get away with a lock, because this is going to be an asynchronous call. Yes, this is the part where we throw in the towel and just say, hey, screw it, 747. Private semaphore slim. Come on, find it. Thank you. Resources lock. And then we'll go. And then, very important, you tell it a max count. So if you over release, it bites you. NoSQL or something. I'm actually going dumber mode than that. I was just going to do disk, right? Save it straight into files. Even though I've called this ID, the idea is that eventually at some point I might do something like that, but right now the IDs are actually just file names coming through. So the current plan is to cheat and because I know that those IDs are going to be unique file names because of how I'm storing them in blob storage, I can just write them to disk using that as an ID. So that's kind of the game plan. So let's see, this needs to change now to be a try with a finally. We need to do a await, resources lock, wait async, and then resources lock, release. That works a little better then. So if this is not null, data stream, return data stream. Okay, if so we're going to let that go. We're going to ignore these two parameters for now. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and just reacquire the lock. So the idea being that if multiple calls are coming in for different IDs, I don't want to necessarily, I want to hold this lock for as little as possible. And since the HTTP call is likely to be the big one, and actually we can go up a little more. We can even do this. Stream, data stream. We can do that, and then resource lock, release. We'll do as little inside of the lock as possible, and so we will do persistence, save, ID, data stream. Persist that guy down, and then we will simply return it with the idea that next time through we should hit up here and be much happier. Oh, the other case where we get here is if this guy was not in there yet. So after that save, we should do resources, keyed on ID, gets new. Oh, I'm just realizing I won't have the, I might need to separate the difference between exists and not, because if it doesn't exist from a get image call, it won't be something that I can go and get. How do I want to handle that? If that case occurs, it really is programmer error. Plan to use a large number of images. Potentially yes, but currently the idea is there, because the target user base is people who are me. So that's a pretty small user base, and there's only so many images I'm going to initially generate, so I'm kind of willing to skirt some corners at the moment and circle back to this because I'd rather get it working and then deal with that problem. I think I am gonna want to move this guy out. I almost, yeah. We're gonna break this guy here. And I think what we will do is we'll do something like this. If cached is not null, so we'll let it continue to work because this will still get the data stream and return it. It's great. But if we are cached, we will deal with that. And I guess in this case, the cached is really just ID and version, so that really doesn't matter that much. We don't need to update it in the dictionary. But if we aren't cached, we won't persist. And so at some point, to do, because I do want to, at some point I do want to leverage, I am explicitly setting up the E tag to come back in the headers so that I can do versioning against this stuff and know, oh, the image in my cache is different than the image in the header. So at some point I will need to do something in here about like checking the cached items version against this guy's header and yada 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 yada. Right now, since I'm the only one uploading images to the blob storage and I'm the only user, not too concerned. Not too concerned. Okay, so that gets me into there, that gets me into there, that gets this working. Table client should now be looking good. Great, okay. Build, and now I should have a bunch of build failures because I should have some failures over pretty much everywhere that's using a table client. So I expect them in 3 projects. You should have a failure, you should have a failure. Specifically, you should have a failure here. So, partial declarations have sorry, what? Oh, that's interesting. That's fun. So I'm running afoul of some generated code, and this is just a bad name. Just call it a display resource for now. That will fix the initial bug. I really wish. Okay. Error performing rename. I'm wondering if Visual Studio needs a restart. It's struggling. That should go away. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that goes there, that goes there, that changes that, that changes that, that cleans that up. Great. That goes like that goes like that. Great, change that up. Come on. Come on, don't think, just do it. Yeah, this is the one I was more expecting. You can see my hard codedness here. So this is where I need to actually start writing in a persistence. Let's see. Question. If an object is greater than 84K, it gets into the large object section of the GC and doesn't seem to be cleaned up all the time. The application in such situations accepts somehow to force clean it, or is this normal behavior? Ooh, well, it's normal-ish. C# large object. So there is where is it? So this is not what I'm looking for. Where's the docs on it? because garbage collection is one of the most complicated areas of all of this, and specifically large object heap, this guy here. So this is what you are running into. So this is, I assume this is where your 84K number came from or similar. People have seen this several times. So it is normal that it would not be cleaned up. It comes down to the idea that at a certain point it is more expensive to clean up than to just leave it there, which is why the large object heap is set up the way it is. How you should manage it kind of depends, because so this used to be a bigger issue with 32-bit apps, because what could very easily happen, especially if you had things that were declaring large objects, is you could fragment your large object heap and then get out of memory exceptions when you were well below memory limits. 64-bit came along and let people be lazy about it because it then didn't matter as much. Because oftentimes people would be like, hey, I've got plenty of RAM, why am I getting an out of memory exception? Like, I'm even well below the memory address limit for 32-bit, which is 2.1 gigs or something, which is still a lot of memory. But 32-bit running applications could run afoul of that, and you could hit it well below that limit if you had a fragmented large object heap. So you would run into problems there. So there are several conditions under which the large object heap will be either compacted and cleaned up. It is possible, so it's likely that you are seeing normal behavior and it's not cleaning it up right away or at all because it's probably big and it's expensive. You can try to do like a GC collect to try and force a collection, but this is something that you should do it very sparingly in your application, and only when you know that there's a decent amount of stuff that needs to be cleaned up. Like if you've just cleaned up a bunch of big like image arrays and whatnot, and you know that, hey, there's a lot of memory out there that could be taken back, it's not bad. Putting a GC collect all over your app is a great way to kill your performance. Great way to kill your performance. Not usually recommended. But you'll note the other two situations under which that large object heap is going to be collected aren't really directly controllable by you. So like system is in a low memory situation, right? Unless you're gonna simulate low memory stuff, there's not really a good, you can't make these things happen. GC doesn't cheat. I assume you mean clean. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it not necessarily clean, but collect. So, and that's where it gets down to where is it? That have no live objects. So these sections here about even though when it collects and when it actually frees the memory, there is let's see. Where is it? Because this is one of those areas that I always have to go back and look at because I can never remember the details directly off the top of my head. I am also making a bit of an assumption that you are on a later version of .NET. The garbage collection stuff, if you are on an older framework, may be different. There's also worth noting there are 4 or 5 different versions of the C# garbage collector. This information here is all specific to the .NET one. There is one for mono. There is a server GC that is that you won't see if you're running like a WPF app. But based on your description of either like an interview, image viewer or chat sections, yeah. So image viewer or chat sections where there was a lot of pictures that can be closed, expecting all resources to be clean, but they are not cleaned. So, and that's, you may not see it get garbage collected and cleaned up right away, but you should regain some of the memory because of the this function here. So things will grow, and it does depend a lot on how you're using it. This is often why I was looking to return streams rather than byte arrays in a lot of situations, because if I return a stream is effectively the pointer into something else. A memory stream obviously is just a pointer into a byte array, which is not great. That's going to be on the heap. But if I know that I can return a stream to, say, a file object instead, then the thing reading it can just pull that in and clean it up. Pull it in, clean it up. Let me grab this just in case. I'm sure you can find that doc page as well. But to answer your original question, that is somewhat normal behavior. The best you can usually do is null out and make sure you've broken all of your resources, and then called a GC collect if it's at the right space. But you still may hit this, I think this green one, this decommitted space, because you'll note it doesn't necessarily, to use like the C language where it's malloc and dealloc, it's not necessarily going to dealloc it. The runtime will keep a hold of that memory, but just mark it as available for use later. So you can run in, because the runtime itself is going to be moving stuff around. The video that I did for the C# calamity stuff, where I manipulate the strings, that was part of the reason for the fixed keyword in C#, is because memory might get shifted around, you end up having to basically put your foot down and pin the thing in place and say, please do not move while I'm working with you. Because if one of these collections happens and things get compressed, yeah, so large object heap before GC, after GC, Gen 2. So if that helps, again, there are a lot of complexities here, and oftentimes the simplest solution is usually to just think about if you can avoid hitting the large object heap to begin with. Because typically if you're hitting the large object heap, it's almost every time I've hit it, it's always been with arrays and allocating massively big arrays. And so not doing that is usually the key. Okay. Back. Where did I go? Okay, so I need an implementation of this for up here. So we're just gonna go add class we'll just write it up here. Let's see. I paste, and you should find that. Implement interface. Now, I kind of already have some of that in here, because I know where I'm going to put stuff. So let's go in here, and the goal will be to eventually to obsolete that other class in favor of this one, because I don't think I'm going to need it once I get this working. Okay, so that's going to go there. Get images folder. So if I want to implement get all, the question will be, how do I want to persist this data? And I believe the answer is going to be just read it out. So storage folder, do that, images folder gets await get images folder, that images folder, and then what is the thing for get a file? I think I actually have it over here. Load, this guy, get folders, add items from folder, get files, blah blah blah. Gonna be something akin to this. So it's gonna be you need to be async storage file gets, and I'm assuming there's gonna be a get file or similar. I don't know the UWP APIs very well. Let's see, get files, get file, async. Great. And we're going to, for now, we're just going to use the ID and leverage the fact that I know it's going to exist. Just checking to see if there was a overload or anything I should be aware of. Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Return file, open read async. What is open read? Oh, that's not, I want stream for read. And this guy here is actually, should be this, but because I am in nullable or old school land, nullability is turned off, and I don't actually understand why I can't get this to enable at the project level, so I just do that. At some point I need to spend time figuring it out, but so, and what we need to do here is these APIs will throw in a variety of circumstances, because you aren't supposed to rely on file existence. Catch IO exception. So on IO exceptions, we will return null. Actually, you know what? Any exception. I don't think anything that throws, I'm not going to deal with. So that'll implement that. Quiet. Be happy. Okay, so now we need to get all of the data. And so now the question will become, I'm going to need to store this thingy somewhere. And he probably needs a ID property. And generate constructor. String version. I think we might just go dummy mode and because on a save we need to update that resource data too. So I'm thinking what we do is something really stupid simple. So we're gonna go here like this. Make you async. Let's go private const string metadata file gets data.json. We're gonna go stupid mode. So we're gonna do this maneuver here. That. Oh, actually, I'm pretty sure that needs to be inside of the try as well. If I remember right, you throw on file not found. Doesn't say. I'm pretty sure it throws. Regardless, both of those we want to block on. Now you, I don't want to return there. So we want to do file, open read. Let's see. So I assume I can do JSON. Serializer. Deserialize. Resource data. Because we're just going to dump this thing straight in. File stream. I believe you have a stream overload. You have something on you that takes a stream. Serialize JSON document. No. You have something that's deserialized with a stream something or another on you. Look at the other code. Deserialize. That's all string. UTF reader. I could have sworn there was a string something another on this. Or stream, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Yeah, deserialize. UTF. Am I in the wrong class? Text.json. Deserialize. Yeah. I think I'm just hitting the wrong overload. So let's go down. Yeah, why am I not hitting that overload? Because I used var. var bad. You await it, then it becomes obvious. I was trying to push a task in there. Got it. So we will return that, but because that's nullable, we'll do array.empty if in that situation. Let's see, resource data, and then down below we're gonna also do this. It's do exception handling, because suppressing all is not a great experience. Okay. And this guy here becomes, we're gonna start again. And then this is gonna become ID. But in this case, image folder, I actually want to create, I have this in the other code. Where does it add? Get image, add image. This is what we want. Okay, we want to do something akin to this. We want to do that. Async. Let's see. Images folder. Create file. On collision, I don't think I wanted to generate a unique name. I think I wanted to overwrite. Replace existing. So on collision, replace. Open stream for write. And then I think we go data copy to async instead. And go write stream, await. boppy booyah. Okay, so that gets me reading and writing images. Yay. I approve. Okay, so you now exist and are a thing. So we now come back up to main page where we were creating this, and this becomes new one of these thingies. Okay. Now you're happy. Okay, so that should work. So on a set image request, I need to change up some of this. Well, shoot, we've got load image and set image. This is dumb. This is a case where you're seeing like version 2.5 loaded in here. Okay, so I want to kill off, so I think load image makes more sense. But what we want to do is, I'd like to kill off most of this image manager. I guess I can't quite kill it off because there's some stuff in here that's useful, but I can certainly get rid of a lot of this. So like, for example, add image is no longer used, kill it. Get images folder should be dead, kill it. Get images, where was that used? List images. So this isn't going to be a real thing anymore. In fact, I should just delete. I'm not going to delete that just yet, but the table isn't going to handle that regardless. So that's just going away. So let's come back into here. This image manager isn't going to handle that, so that goes away. Okay, set current image. So we are going to need to have a get. I don't think we need a load anymore. We actually do, because in the case where the table was fired up previously and had previously downloaded an image, it should do a load. And I'm thinking that this guy is actually going to want to leverage the table client. So I think we want to pass him in here, because he's going to need to do a little bit of work with that. But I want this guy to manage effectively the business logic-y stuff around this. So you are no longer going to be instantiated there. Instead, let's see, connect to server. You are only assigned there. Let's see, which is only invoked in the one place. So what we're going to do is we are going to move you down here. Actually, we're just going to move connect to server up to the top. Because connect to server, I believe, shows connect. Yeah, it does connecting. You can see this is low-level printf debugging, just setting the text of a label. So if client is client, so we're only gonna do this work if our client gets set. If we're unable to connect, all bets are off at that point. And then image manager gets new client. Boom. Okay, what is your problem? Oh, because you are now inside of a task.run, you are not guaranteed to exist. Okay. With that, for the moment, do some fancy stuff here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to turn off this one. I think we're going to put everything into this. So it'd be a little unusual that we get into this situation here. But I think what we're going to do is change up the API, because that tell don't ask rule, right? So it's doing an ask and then telling it, and then, or I should say, it is asking and then asking to get that back. And I don't believe that's what we want. Ultimately, we kind of want this guy here. So what I'd prefer to do, this get image source, this guy here is doing this. I don't really care about that. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to do it straight up in here. So let's do, we're going to go like this, and we're going to do get image. We're going to convert this over here, and then set source. Is there a non-set async? Okay. This is a bad name. Image stream. And I random access stream. So you really want I'll have to find the APIs for that. Get rid of that. Let's see, a couple of questions. So, interview for a front-end programmer. Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. Recording. So on that first question, when you say record or record, or I see, potentially record an interview for a programmer of that level, I assume is what you're looking for. Junior, middle, senior. Okay. Repositories where you can study the approaches and architectures of a WPF application, preferably some complex programs. Behavior and attached properties, best practices. Ooh, okay. So I think, once again, let me copy that, and I got to get my Word document open. Okay, so let me get that into my list that I've got going. So I will keep that in mind. The interview one may end up having to be a bit of a mock one, though. I suspect it'll be a little more challenging to get people willing to have their interview logged and posted. But I suspect it would not be terribly difficult to get some of my colleagues to run through one of these for me, and I could probably find people at every level either willing to perform an interview or to do one, which might not be a bad idea. I will warn you though, the interviews that my company does tend to be a little different than some places. So things in tech are changing, but they aren't perfect by any means. The key thing is some people are still stuck in the ways of having people like whiteboard code and that kind of thing to go through and do it, whereas my company kind of rarely does that kind of thing unless there's something specific we're kind of hunting for. Most of the time we're looking for how well people know things and how well they can learn. So ideally a good interviewer can push the interviewee and figure out where the bounds of their knowledge are. So oftentimes that's pretty easy, and especially as you kind of go up to higher levels, it almost becomes more of a conversation back and forth to just make sure that the person really is at the level they think they are. My boss, one of his favorite questions he likes to ask people is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself in your knowledge of insert technology here, C#, WPF, ASP.NET Core, whatever. And oftentimes, the question is really about letting the person being interviewed kind of set the bar for where they say they are. So if you're a senior, you're probably sitting in the 7, 8 plus range, mid down there, entry level 1 through 4ish maybe. But it's really about when asking questions, how deep can you go with somebody? But I will keep those logged. Like I said, I can probably get some colleagues to go through and do some of that. And we've got people at every level right now. And I will poke around for the repositories. There's a couple of them out there that are actually probably pretty good, especially if you're looking for more complex ones. Let me look, because I think the chocolatey gooey one is... I think that one's open source. Yeah, so if you want to see a fairly complex production grade app, that's not a bad one there. So yeah, so this will be, you'll see the MVVM, the whole layout of everything in here. So, and I think it's, yeah. So you'll see a fairly common layout of what happens in here. This does heavily leverage MA apps for their UI bit. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else they leverage. It does use Caliburn. I personally am not a favor of Caliburn. It does a lot of things by convention, which is great if you know and understand the convention, and miserable to debug if you don't get the right incantation. So a lot of convention-based libraries I'm not a big fan of for that reason, because it's not always intuitive to people what's going on. Boy, it looks like they're on old CS Proj too. It's probably because they are trying to support a lot of different operating systems, I imagine. But yes, if you want a production grade, fairly complex WPF application, there you are. It is a good one. Okay, so let's see, get image. This guy's going to come in here. We're going to not do that. You're going to do bitmap image. It's going to go there. That gets deleted. Okay, so now it's just a matter of figuring out random access stream into here. Random access. I'm surprised that this isn't a the easiest thing to do actually will be, I can't expose that interface there. Actually, what I can do that. That'll work, I think. I don't know. I'm kind of curious if I don't know if this actually works. I'm trying to remember how this is set up. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. An explicit conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? Oh, interesting. Oh, I don't like that. want to know. Ahaha. That's what I want. I knew there was something else they would do. Put you back. It's an extension method. There we go. Okay, so that'll go there. Perfect. I want something else to deal with the conversion for me. Okay, so when we get the message for the image ID, we're going to call getImage. This guy is going to shell into here, shell into here. This guy's going to call get. Actually, I don't want to shell directly into that because I want to go through my image manager. So I actually want to do image manager. We'll deal with that in a moment. And kind of want get image to exist. So how about if image manager is image manager and there, problem solved. Boom. And then I need that thingy to exist. Go here, bring you up. Has image is now dead. Great, die. So, but get image, I need to be a thing. And I need you to return a stream nullable. I need to be async. And I need you that we're gonna have to clean up because this is all just garbage. You all garbage. Yeah, we'll deal with you in a minute. So get image by image ID is going to rely on client get image. We'll pass in the ID. Stream gets await. The one thing that this is going to need to do is keep track of the last one at some point. So I'm going to leave these separate statements rather than just one-lining it because to do remember last image, because on startup I would like it to relaunch with the previous image, assuming one is there. So this thing should end up doing something like set current image or similar. Okay, so we're gonna get that going. That will go there. Get image. More importantly, this thing will now hit it'll hit resource manager. It will go out. It'll do the caching bits and should hit fairly effectively. Pass back a stream. Keep something loaded in the cache where possible. Okay. So this guy needs to, let's see, to do load last image if there was one. Okay, so pile, and I should have at least one more error before I hit my tests. Because I expect, yeah, so here's how we're gonna fix the test. Just gonna unload the project. Build. I'll let you finish. Then I'm going to just unload the project because I don't want to deal with you right now. Okay, so this guy here is going to be the same situation. And I think what I'm going to do is actually in here, probably should have started with this. Memory. Resource systems. So this may look weird, but this is something that I got turned on to when I was working on the system command line project, is the idea of actually building out in-memory implementations of your interfaces and ship them right along with the production code. The idea being that quite often you will need these implementations for your tests, and you may not necessarily realize it, but people using your libraries may want them as well. Now, I'm not shipping this as a library. That's not part of my intent. But I'm going to need this as my tests, and so having a real implementation is going to be rather handy. I could write it in the unit test project, or I could put it here, and I could actually write tests against it to make sure it's a good implementation if I wanted to. Let's see, private dictionary. Let's do string, stream, data. We're just going to do these maneuvers, and we're going to go with public because why not? And then this will be if data try get value id out stream null. Pass from result. Let's see. Not gonna be able to figure out the nullable type. So let me help you. There. Okay. And then this. The resource data was a fairly simple class, ID version. We're not using version yet, so let's just do return task from list. List first data. New. Oh, actually, rather than that, we can do better. We can just go data, select, link, key value pair, drop you down a little bit. New resource data. This is going to be key value pair key, and then for now, version will all just be 1 for reasons, and then this is to array. That now gives me a reasonable hit. Right? What is your problem? I cannot convert. Oh, you're just slow. Okay, and so this will be return as completed task. This will end up being data sub ID gets data. Boom. Bippity boppity booyah. We got an in-memory provider, which means I can go to my guy over here that was having problems. I can go new, paste, done. Okay, obviously it needs a to-do real provider. It obviously needs a real one. But for a quick and dirty test. And we need to change the method it's invoking. So when we call set, let's see, that was view models, image details page. Well, on the select, it's calling set current image. We want this to actually be load image message. I think that's all you have on you. To do include version. Why make synchronous things falsely asynchronous? So the only reason for doing that is because in this case, my interface declares everything as task returning. And this is this memory implementation one is one implementation of this interface. The other one up here, for example, is actually asynchronous because it's doing file I/O. So in this case, it just happens to be that the in-memory implementation doesn't need to do anything asynchronous. So it's just going to perform synchronous. Okay. But it is a good thing to keep an eye out for. I've often caught myself where I've declared a interface as task returning, and then I realized by the time I was done, all of my implementations were synchronous, and that was just dumb. So, but in this case, I have at least one implementation I know that will be asynchronous. Okay, so we are going to fire up the UWP app without debugging. And I could set it up to debug multiple projects at the same time, but I found that, oh, I need to close this. I found that it's just simpler if I launch one at a time. Okay, so there's that. Fires up. It should connect. Loading images. Probably, yeah, that's probably the last message it's going to post. I don't think it has. I'm going to have to clean that up at some point. Okay, so now we come down to the mobile app. Set as startup project. Fire up on the Pixel. So what we should see, if I've done everything correctly, is this guy loads the image. All of this to load an image. This is by far the most complicated way I think you can build an image viewer. I'm sure somebody will come up with a more complicated one, but this is probably the most complicated. It's definitely the most complicated image viewer I've ever built. A new client connected. That's good. So everything's still talking to each other. We got this guy downloaded. Great. That's the other thing. When you're on mobile apps, it's worth noting, emulators and simulators are great, but they do not represent your actual app. Your network speed and performance when you're running on one of these guys is more indicative of your desktop or whatever development machine you're on, not indicative of a mobile device. Test on a real device, always, always, always. Okay, so we blew up. I'm a little surprised. But I've got enough stuff in here that we blew up somewhere around the view model, and I'm wondering if it's one of those we put in a stream. Do you know the integrated video card Ryzen 56H will pull any MAUI development? That is a. Let's see. I am not as familiar with that one, but. This one? Best. That's not an integrated video card, though. That looks better. Turns out you need to get the whole thing. Let's see. Specs. That's what I'm interested in. Let's see. Ryzen 5. You should be fine. So just to be clear, so I'll show you this. So the current system specs that I'm sitting on, now admittedly, this is a desktop, not a laptop, so I will point that. But I'm only on a Ryzen 5 1600, which is not that high end of a processor. So it's still also only a 6-core. This thing even has a max higher boost clock speed. The base clock speed is fairly comparable. Yeah, I mean, you should be fine. I would see no reason why you would have any issues with it. The graphics card, the only thing that you may run into is the Android emulators. But the newer one, like they used to be, like the Android emulators got a bad rap for a long time because they used to be garbage. And Microsoft, or I should say Xamarin, actually rolled their own emulator for a while because the built-in ones were so bad. And then Microsoft and Google got together and they fixed a lot of the stuff. No, Maui doesn't use the graphics card directly. The emulator can hit it. But the new ones haven't been that bad at all. And it's really not that much. Yeah, mine on the graphics card is really it's really not that graphics intensive unless you're building something that's going to be graphics intensive. So the only other thing, and there shouldn't be any issue here, the latest Android emulators, as long as you can fire up and turn on Hyper-V, you should be golden. Because then you'll get the nice fast Android emulators. If you fire up the Android emulators without Hyper-V enabled, you'll get a warning telling you, hey, your performance may really suck on this machine until you turn on Hyper-V. So it's just in your Windows settings to turn that on. But I don't see any reason why this machine should hold up just fine. The other thing you can do too, if the Android emulators are slow, if you've got a physical device, and at the end of the day, when you're building a mobile app, you should always test on the physical device anyway. Oftentimes, I'll just deploy out to mine. And you can even